Hello students, how are you? Uh, Today we are actually going to discuss about basics of C++, the first lecture on C++. Okay, let's start. It's a brief about myself and see, this topic mainly covered today's lecture. See one thing. The journey from 0-1 to object-oriented programming language. Initially, you know that the computer can understand only one thing. Yeah, you know, I think either 0 or 1. The computer cannot understand other than 0 and 1. So after that, we get a series of zeros and series of ones. Series of zeros and ones. I can say that 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, dot, dot, 1, 1, 0, 0. So 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, dot, dot, dot. So here each one, that means each of these maybe is an instruction saying something, computer to do something. So you can see that if the programming is like this, it's very difficult from the programmer point of view to understand it. Sorry, not to understand, they are actually understand, and that's why they are writing this one. To maintain this one, debugging is very difficult here, and but in point of machine point of view, this programming language, that means a machine level programming language, is a very efficient way, because the machine can directly understand this language. So that's why this is very fast. So the advantages, the machine can understand it very easily and speed is very high, and but the programmer point of view, this one is very difficult. Next, assembly level language. We know that the assembly level language are using some mnemonics. Say I am writing move, I have some register. If you have some register like 0, consider that our machine can have all these things A, B and C. So moving, say move A comma B, that means B content will move to A. Or I think if you know about the microprocessor programming, you know about this kind of language, that means the assembly level language, MVI A20, like this. Now the procedural programming language, and then the object oriented programming language. The procedural programming language, considering that you know about C, so what is the main thing in case of procedural programming language? To write the code, the correct program, you have to write the code in such a way it will perform some certain task. It is very easier to write, but difficult in which situation? It is divided into n number of modules. So if you see that this one, okay, say this one is function F1, this one is F2, this one is F3, and this is global data G1, global data G2, global data G3. You can module the program using n number of functions. That means I am considering that these are the module. But if you want to access the global data, otherwise you cannot, or the functions commonly cannot access anything. So in that case, you have to make some data, global data, and unrestricted access of it. Unrestricted access. This is the main disadvantage in case of procedural programming language. Data and function. Main concept of it is you have some data, you have some functions, you have to write the code in such a way that it is performing some certain task. Now the approach is this. The paradigm is this: functions, data, and unrestricted use, the unrestricted access of global data. But object-oriented programming, you can relate it, that means a programmer can relate it with real world. Now, if you think that object, everything in our real world, you can see that these are objects. Not only the function, not only the data, it's object, combination of some attribute and combination of behavior. That means a combination of attribute and behavior, some attributes and corresponding behavior. See this example, that computer. First take, I am taking this example, computer. It has a brand, it has a resolution, some price, and the behavior: processing, display, printing. If you consider person, name, age, sex, and speak, how the person speak, how the person walks, listen, write, these are all the behavior. So I can identify any object. So you can think one thing, that you can identify one object using attributes and behavior. Okay. You can relate the object-oriented programming language with the real world. What happened actually? Continuous decline of hardware cost, high-speed computing becomes economically feasible to write object-oriented programming language, because now the architecture are very complex instruction set architecture. You know about the CISC architecture. So now the architecturally the computer is very complex and it can handle it. So as it is growing, that the hardware is now become very economically feasible. So now it is possible for the programmer to develop the programming language in such a way that it can relate with real world. So what are the benefits of object-oriented programming? Easily extendable and maintainable program. How? We will discuss it. Programs are divided in terms of object, not procedure. Okay. Function that operates on data are tied together with, operates on data. Functions are tied together with data. So next class I will discuss about it, but just for now, just now see these things. So object, it has some data and functions, that means a behavior. Data, function. Okay, this is object. Now the data is tied. You are actually creating one thing. Consider it as a capsule. Consider it as capsule, and within this capsule you have data as well as function. Okay. How security is enhanced here, we will discuss it later. Now the question, why should we study C++? Because nowadays object-oriented programming language like Java, Python are very, they're very popular. So now why should we study about this language, that means object-oriented language like C++? See this application of C++. Most of the compilers are written in C++. The compiler like C#, Java, they are actually written in C++. MySQL, and YouTube where the video will be uploaded, the YouTube is still using the C++, and developing browser like Google Chrome, Mozilla, they are actually using the C++. C++ supports procedural as well as object-oriented programming. So first, see one thing. C++ is a language supports procedural as well as object-oriented. Unlike Java, that means if you, in case of Java, you know that everything, that means if you want to write even a simple hello world type program, printing hello world, generally we first write this hello world type program, still you have to write it within a class. When main will be written, and then I'm not writing the exact syntax of Java, but you can see that if you want to print a simple message, that time you have to do it within class. But these things are not in C++. You can write a simple program, a procedural programming like C. You know that in case of C, the execution will be started from the special type of function main. This is also true for C++. You can write a simple program in case of C++. Simple. C++. The program can be started. You can write the program only using the main. So like C program, every C++ program must have the global function main, from where execution will be started. So now I am writing a simple program, hello world type program. See this part. IO stream. Here it is a new feature for handling IO operations. That means the input output operations are called streams. Streams are abstraction that refers to data flow. C++ has two types of stream. One is input stream and another one is output stream. Here I have used the output stream cout, and cout is object, and it will display all the items from left to right. Okay, left to right. And what is std? Specifies that the name cout to be found in standard library namespace. Now what is the namespace concept? Initially the namespace concept was not there, I mean in C++. Now think about a situation that you have written, you know that all the reserved word in case of C also you cannot use it. You cannot give a function name like if. You cannot give a function name like while, because all these are reserved word. Okay. Similarly, reserved in case of any other language, in case of C++, you cannot use a reserved language. Now think that in version 1 you have written a code and given the name of a function, say XYZ, or anything, a variable name is XYZ. And after some time the version 2 is introduced, and in version 2 the XYZ function is there, and when you are going to run the code you are getting error, and you are confused that why I am getting the error, because the code is actually running 2 or 3 days ago, it's fine, but now I am getting error. So to avoid this kind of problem, maybe in version 2 the XYZ become a reserved word. So maybe this kind of situation is very common. So to avoid this one, the namespace concept is introduced to reduce the naming conflict. Like you have a building, another building, and in building 1 you have room number 1, room number 2, room number 3, like this. When you have again created another building, if you don't have the concept of naming, namespace concept, you have to give another name, not 1, 2, 3 can be used. But if you use 1, 2, 3 room number, and you can identify it using say B2.3, that means building 2 room number 3, or B1.3 building 1 room number 3. In this way you can use the same name again and again. So here this is the concept of naming. Namespace concept is like this. Say after some maybe you are using your own cout, and it will not give you the error, because when you are using only the STD scope resolution cout, that means you are using that cout which is already defined in the compiler. Now is it clear? Without writing again STD scope resolution cout, you can directly use it using namespace STD, and you can use cout. If you see the printf function and you want to print the integer, that time you need to give %di, or if you want to scan it, then scanf, say %f %j. So every time you have to specify the type of it. You have to. Stream do not require explicit data type specification in IO statement, and not explicit address operator prior to the variable in the input statement. Okay. See one thing, that in case of C++, if you want to write something, say I am writing int main and adding of 2 number, int a, b, c, cout. When I am using cout, that enter values, and writing cin, this one is known as put to operator, get in operator. You can directly write a. If you want to read another one, use the operator and you can write it. See, specific type is not given here. No need to write the specific type, and simply you can write a plus b and then cout c. See here again, specific type is not given. This is the advantage of using the stream input output. Next one is inline function. Inline function is a very important concept in C++. Sometimes this one is known as optimization of code. Every time when a function is called, it takes a lot of extra time in executing a series of instructions for tasks such as jumping to function, saving register, pushing argument into the stack, and returning to the calling function, all like this. So when the function is very small and you have to do all these things, that means pushing the argument, saving the registers and all these things, maybe it is overhead. And think about a situation like say I have this one f1 function and f2 function. Within f2 function f1 will be called. Now see, say to execute f1 function, this one is taking t1 time, okay, and to do all these things, that means saving the register and this, it is taking t2 times. Think about a situation where t1 is less than t2. Think this situation, that to execute a small thing you have to do all these things which I have told you, and it is taking t2 time. So you are just doing a simple thing, but for this you have to do lots of things, and which is basically the overhead. To overcome this problem we use the inline function. What happened in case of inline function? So in case of inline function, say in memory the code is executing one by one, and f2 is written from here to here, f2 is written, and after two line, say 1 and 2 line, f1 will be called, and then the rest of the f2 function will be executed. If you want to avoid the overhead which I have told you, we can do the inline. So if you make inline, make f1 as inline, that time the code of f1 will be copied here. Code of f1 will be copied here. Say it is taking 2 lines. So in 2 lines this is for f1 and it will be copied, and rest of the f2 code will be copied. Now the size will be increased, the code length will be increased, but you can avoid the overhead which was in case of saving registers and all these things. So this is a concept of inline, where the small piece of code will be copied here and you can avoid the switching, that means context switching problem. But in which situation you will use the inline? If the code is very small. If it is a 1000 line code and you are using the inline, so this is basically the wastage of memory. You have to copy all these things and it is basically the wastage of memory. And if it is recursive, again and again the code will be copied. So that time don't use inline function. Okay. Here a simple example is given of inline code. Try to do these assignments using the simple code like C in, C out, and just be habituated with it. Okay. Thank you. If you have any question, you can ask in the comment box. Okay. Thank you.